Hello there everybody and welcome. So you guys asked me to do a proper cleansing flame inquisition build and everything, and I'm happy to provide. We are here with a high culture build and it is mostly holy. Well, yeah, very mostly. I put very much effort into keeping all eldritch things out of this build, and here we go. It is very powerful. As usual, I did my best to optimize the hell out of it, and well, I've also been asked to make a build that is very good for auto battle. For all of you who were asking for something like this one serves. I didn't have to play any battle in this run manually, because the outcome was always beneficial, except for, I think, 2 times, where the AI somehow nuked early game a unit that I wanted to keep. But apart from that, everything was super fine. So let's get started. I'm working here with the very simple setup there. You can go for whatever you like here. I went for some defensive setup where I feel like we got adaptability, we got quick regenerating units, and we got resistances. Obviously, you could also opt into magical damage and pack tactics, overwhelm tactics. There are so many ways how you could build this build that I had a very hard time to specializing something. You could even go for a specific mount build, but I figured that this one has a lot of survivability and oomph. But I see many things working here because the high culture is very synergistic with so many aspects. So, cultural trade-wise, I went with runesmiths because that is just always a nice thing to have, as we want those unit enchantments quite badly, and we are rocking quite a few of those. And keepers of knowledge is an optional one that I can recommend in so far, as it plays really nicely into our many ways of influencing free cities. You have a lot of tools available, and since we are good at researching things, well, I do like the option to spam knowledge like crazy. But feel free to put in something else there, so that would be really no problem whatsoever either. So let's move on over to the tomes. We're obviously starting out with pyromancy, because what kind of cleansing flame would we be without some proper fire magic? This tome provides a lot of things that we want for our build. Fiery arrows and searing blades give our basic cultural units a nice backbone to stand on. The pyromancer is a available early game nuker. He will get outclassed by our cultural tier 3s eventually, but he is nice because he is trainable everywhere, so nice to replace. Although I must say, these two here are not too important. I would recommend the Pyromancer though for a nice start into the early game, and Ignite and Immolate are nice options to nuke the enemy on the battlefield. Searing Weapons is a real power card for your heroes, and Ritual Pyres offers some more mana if you need it. The other tier 1 is Zeal, as Pyromancy and Zeal are really a potent combination. Legion of Zeal gives all of your units a smidge of extra spirit damage, which is amplified if the enemy is condemned. We have Inspire Enchant, which allows us to boost the morale and strengthen our zealous troops. We have a spammable, summonable unit, which is also condemning the enemy, which is pretty nice, so you can use these as sort of a hand grenade to condemn enemies, or you use the spell or the hero ability. Either way, condemnation is cool, as it makes the enemy more susceptible to statuses and your damage. So Fanatical Workforce can fit into your game plan if you need to build something really badly. Tome of Winds is the other thing that I just have to pick here. We have, with the high culture, archers that get, due to the awakening bonus, a +1 on range. Seeker Arrows puts this to ridiculous points where we have really high range archers. Super high range archers. It's quite lovely, especially if you paired your culture with the extra accuracy trait. That would be one option there, but it is not really that necessary, as I figured. The other spells in here we're after is the Zephyr Archer for some nice AoE nuke, and Dust Storm is a real nice retaliation killer, and it also nukes the enemy's ability to shoot you, which is really nice. The other spells in here are not so important for our game plan. Abducting Cyclone is one that I really enjoy for the fun of it, And favorable winds is also really, really fun if you have a lot of oceans around. The Wind Rager, you can use it, but you don't need to. It is relatively unspectacular. In my personal opinion, Seeker, Arrow, Zephyr, Archer, and the Dust Storm are the major players in here. If you want to have some extra, Abducting Cyclone serves quite well. And yeah, Avenging Winds is pretty nice to keep your heroes safe. I really love that. Next up comes the tome that makes our build only mostly holy, but we keep the Banshees out, promise. So Doom Herald comes in really, really well. First off, what would we be if we are not instilling fear into the hearts of the infidels? Joy Siphoners lets you do exactly that, while your people go happier. Cruel Weaponry lets you capitalize the low morale of the enemy eventually with your melee units, and Cause Despair gives you a chance to just nuke the enemy with some minus morale over the board. Prelude of Doom can be used to just demoralize the enemy quite from the get-go. You can't use Cruel Weaponry on your heroes, and the Doom Depth Trench is really nice because High Culture excels at producing city stability, so the downside of this one is really easy to stem. The Banshee is, as a matter of fact, really not necessary for this build at all, as we have a lot of tier 3 business going on. The problem was just the other tier 2 things were just so unspectacular that I didn't want to pick them up, and the Doom Herald one fits to the theme if we X out the undead. And yeah, you get the idea. Tier 3, obviously, Cleansing Flame. We want that Pyre Templar, and we want him bad. Keep in mind that you need a Tier 4 Town Hall, so save up your gold so that you can hire these people as quick as you can. But we're not done there. Zealous Ignition is really cool as it spreads out some condemnation over the enemy. We can create Cleansing Flames that's are buff stripping and status cleansing for our dudes and deal damage, so it's a really nice thing to just spread your battlefield around. Flame Blessed Champions is one superstar behind that, as we now have another chance of burning, and now we could generate the burning field underground when we have enough stacks of burning. This is pretty nifty, as it means that we are eventually generating more and more battlefield ground that is just beneficial for us, bad for the enemy. Pure Flame Staves goes into more condemnation, and this is good as it amplifies the zeal damage on our troops, so there's really much synergy there, and more Cleansing Flames. So we're drenching everything in flame from this point on. Consecrating Firestorm is really cool as it destroys province improvements, so you can really hurt the enemy with that. It's also a nice nuke on the enemy, and you have some Cleansing Flames again. You know the deal. And also condemnation. What's not to love about that? The Temple of the Pyre is a nice fortifying building, and, well, we have more condemnation, what can I say? Cleansing Flame Herald is really cool on your heroes, as it turns every burning ground into Cleansing Flames. It's enough to have one of these guys, and yeah, you just spread more flames at that point. The other tier 3, and henceforth, we stick to the order path. So I personally recommend at this point Subjugation, as it brings so much goodness to your build that I personally really enjoy. Intimidating Aura plays so nice into the Doom Herald's game plan. The Tyrant Knight offers us a tier 4 shock unit if we ever need one. I mean, seriously, we have already a pretty heavy budget on tier 4 units, but why not? Final Ultimatum allows us to hire enemy fleeing units. This is a fringe case, but can be quite useful at times. And we get to steal population from the enemy. If you happen to rock an Eldritch Sovereign, this is a pretty nice thing. And the Baron's Palace, I love these. If you conquer a lot of cities, this is pretty good. Terrifying Aura for your heroes goes without saying, plays nice into the rest of your game plan. And from that point on, Supremacy and Exaltation are the path to go, which just will enhance more of everything that you're already good at. More Zeal for your battle mages eventually. Tier 4 shield units that you can also spam. You have a super high quality roster, leading eventually into the God Emperor Tome, which allows you to keep alive and boost everything, which is already overpowered. So let's move on over to the strategy pod. First off, this build is super powerful right from the get-go. This is one of the things that I really love about it. High Culture with Pyromancy has an extremely powerful profile to begin with. In your military roster, the Dawn Defenders and the Dusk Hunters, though, are very, very low tier units, and you don't need too many of them. I'd personally recommend, though, to recruit a couple of Dusk Hunters early on. 3 or 4 are totally okay, as it will take a while until you have access to the much better Zephyr Archers, so you will have to stick to these guys. On the other hand, the Dawn Defenders can be totally replaced by Daylight Spears, which are easily available at that point. We don't necessarily need shield units. I would still recommend 1 or 2 of these for the sake of the defensive aura that they can spread, but they are really not needed for the sake of damage dealing. The Daylight Spears are much better at this job in every single aspect. The Pyromancers are here again a early game steroid, so don't use them too wildly. If you are able to upgrade your Town Hall quickly to the tier 3, you might even completely skip them if you want to, as the Awakeners are much better at their job than the Pyromancers. But the charm of the Pyromancers is that you can hire them also in other cities at the front line, and their flame strike never grows old. I can't emphasize it enough how powerful it can be. The Sun Priests are very, very important, as they have a powerful burst heal and the Twin Awakening. This spell is just powering up all of your units, as it boosts up your spirit damage by +3 and activates dormant traits. Point of this whole thing is your units have fiery arrows, zealous bonus, plus the awakening bonus, so everyone in your army will hit like a truck. That's amazing. I love that about this build. So Sun Priests, you should really aim for something like 4 or even 5. Well, it would be maybe too much, but 4 of them should be definitely in your army, alone for the availability of Twin Awakening. Speaking about Awakening, you also get tier 3, the Awakeners. These guys have a nice basic attack, an AoE nuke which shreds resistances, and they can awaken a specific unit. These guys are there to replace your Pyromancers eventually, bit by bit. The problem about them is they're relatively costly, so the Pyromance always retains a role in your armies eventually. So Zephyr Archers are there to completely replace your Dusk Hunters, and unlike the Pyromancers, the Dusk Hunters have no redeeming qualities versus the Zephyr Archers. Zephyr Archers have a higher damage, and they provide an AoE nuke that also gets boosted up by the range upgrades of the High Culture. Real kick-ass unit. Can only recommend. And these two guys, you should really spam as many as you can until you finally hit tier 4. So the goal here is to retain as much gold as you can to get the tier 4 Town Hall for the many tier 4 goodness unit for the many good tier 4 units that you will spam, while spamming a lot of good units out of the battlefield. The Pyre Templar is pretty much the game-breaking unit for your build, as he is very early available. Fire Cleave is a AoE basic attack. They deal damage while they block, and they're really darned hard to kill. The best part about them is they get the awakened bonus from the High Culture as well, giving them an extra retaliation attack, bringing them to a really, really powerful state where they can be your entire front line as long as you can pay the Imperium costs. So, you want to spread, of course, your reign of terror as far as possible, as quick as possible with this build, which goes without saying. The good part about it is you can go for whatever goals and targets you want very, very quickly, because there's pretty much nothing the AI can put against you that can stop you. At the point where you have access to tier 2 units, you are virtually unstoppable, and it only gets worse with every tome that you add onto this build. The wonderful part is that your cultural spellbook contains a healing spell, and you have a lot of other little tools to heal your units. And what I noticed in the auto battle that I watched was that the AI is excelling at just buffing and healing and buffing and healing, and That's the reason why nobody did die. It was quite amazing to behold. Therefore, I would strongly recommend to spec your heroes a little bit into summoning and restorational magics if you want to go the lazy way like I did. I went for a champion hero because champions are extremely good for this build because you are churning out a mostly cultural army here. You're almost summoning nothing. There's no. I really did my best to keep it as Inquisition-like as possible, but yeah, this is another reason why we want this that way. So, another point to keep an eye out for is that this build is extremely good with free cities. So you have the access to all seeing right from the get-go if you pick the traits like I did, and you have access to tons of whispering stones. So knowledge generation is for this build a walk in the park. So yeah, try it out to have some fun with it. It is really extremely amazing fun, and especially happy. I was especially happy about the fact that this build is so good in auto combat. You just slap the enchantments on, and then you just send them on a wild ride. I gave you some the ratios in your army. Just keep an eye out on replacing the tier 1 units eventually with better stuff, and don't lean too much on the tier 2 units, as your real power lies in the fact that you can feel the stupidly large tier 3 and tier 4 army relatively stable. Therefore, increasings of Imperium income are really interesting for your build, as tier 4 units have the expense of Imperium. So that is one thing that I also want to mention. And apart from that, have fun with it. Leave your comments down below. Leave a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. And in the description box, you can find a playlist link to all my Age of Wonders stuff and links to support the channel, Patreon, PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and the YouTube channel membership stuff. And I want to say thanks to everybody who checked these out, and thanks to you for watching this video. So, have a nice day. See you around.